Okay, so let's begin to learn. So we'll pick up where we left off last week. Just got started last time with the first couple of Mishnayos, Maseches Brachos. So let's continue on. We'll see. We'll try to move forward. So we're up to the first parak of Maseches Brachos. We're up to Mishnah Gimel. So what we saw last time. Shalom Aleichem, everybody. So what we saw last time is that there's a mitzvah from the Torah to say Krishna at night and to say Krishna in the morning. And so what we saw was that the Mishnah talked about the Zman of Krishna. The Zman of Krishna. By the way, if you guys are in a matzav where you can turn on the camera, I think it'll be nice to see people's faces. But again, you could, I don't know, you might be in your pajamas still, so I don't know. So that's totally fine. So that's the mile of Zoom. You sort of get more comfortable. Like last week I was wearing a jacket. Now I'm not wearing a jacket. We'll see what happens on Thursday, So we'll see where it takes us. Anyway, so getting back into the Mishnah. So we're up to Mishnah Gimel. Mishnah Gimel. Zok the Mishna Vishami, Omer and Vishami say. Now we're moving on not just the Zman of Krishna, but now how it should be said physically. So it says the Mishnah Vishami, Omer and Vishami say, the Erev, when you're saying Krishna at night, Kol Adam Yatu V'Yikra, a person should be physically laying down. It says in Pasuk, Vishami says, it says B'shach B'cha. B'shach B'cha, it says you should say Krishna when you lie down. Vishami learns that's not only telling you when to say Krishna, it's telling you how to say Krishna, to say lying down. Kol Adam Yatu V'Yikra, a person should lie down and read it. U'babayker, and in the morning, Yamdu, it says, not only when you should say Krishna is when people get out of bed, but you should be upright when you say Krishna. Basil say no. Kol Adam Kedarkai, a person can say Krishna in any position that you want. Again, bear in mind, we're still talking about Krishna in terms of the mitzvah, the isolated mitzvah of Krishna. Now that Chazal come and sort of reconfigure Krishna as part of davening, so now there's halachas of davening to tell you what position you should be in, right? So, for example, technically says Beis Hillel, you can lie down, you can be jogging, you can do whatever you want when you're saying Kriyishma. But that's in terms of Kriyishma. But now that Kriyishma is part of Shachris, or it's part of Ma'ariv, then Hilchas Tefillah says that you shouldn't be jogging when you're davening Ma'ariv, davening Shachris, right? So you should be, what should you be in? So I'll tell you something interesting. The people you'll see in Shul, there's all sorts of people in shul and what they do during davening. So there's people pacing and all that stuff. But when it comes to Kriyishma, whether it be Shachris or Ma'ariv, most people sit. And the truth is that Beis Yosef and Shulchan Aruch says such a thing, that a person should dafka sit after Baruch Hu. You should sit during the times of Kriyishma. So the reason for that is it's based on the Zohar. The Zohar says that Beis Yosef brings it down in his commentary to the Tur, that the Zohar says that dafka Kriyishma is connected to the inyan of the Kisya Kovid, because throughout davening you sort of you're working your way up to be able to stand in the presence of Hashem. So by Kriyishma, you're holding by Kisya Kovid. So says the Beis Yosef, if the inyan of Kriyishma is Kisya Kovid, then you should sit. That's what the Shulchan Aruch says, to sit by Kriyishma. The Vilna Gaon said not like that. It's interesting. In his commentary to Shulchan Aruch, the Vilna Gaon says that when the Zohar Kodesh writes that, it doesn't mean that therefore you have to physically be sitting. He brings rise to this, that there could be madrigas in the oilmis that a person is connected to. Sometimes we want to sort of mimic where we're connected to, but lav dafka, sometimes it's just that reality in the nefesh. So the Vilna Gaon held that you don't have to sit by Kriyishma. But again, certainly not to jog, and not to just lie down or whatever it is. But again, our Mishnah is talking about Kriyishma as it exists in its own mitzvah, not connected to davening. So again, says Beis Hillel, you could say Kriyishma any which way. Shenamar, because the pasuk says, it literally says, say Kriyishma as you're walking along the path, right? So it doesn't mean that you have to lie down or stand up. It's any position that you want. So why does it say lie down and get up? So therefore, says Beis Hillel, it's only telling you the Zman. It means that when should you say Krishna? When people lie down and when people get up. The position is it's any which way. The Smart Kedashim talk about this also. It's a remez that, the way of Vishami is the way of Midas Hadin. And so Shema Yisrael, Kriyishma, which is always about connecting oneself to Elokus, Hashem Echad. So Vishami says it takes a certain avodah hachana. You can't just, it's not open, you can't think that you're going to be able to makash yourself with a Hashem echad as you're jogging. You have to stand, sit with yishuv adas, with hachana. And Beis Hillel is not like that. Beis Hillel is Rosh Tevis Harayfe L'Shvurei Lev, one that heals the broken heart. And so you have Yidden that have a broken heart. We're not holding hachana. Hachana, even if we're standing and sitting, we're not doing hachanas, So for the Hill, Hill comes to mechazik us and say, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, it's Uvlechtecha B'derech also. It's Uvlechtecha B'derech also. The Zman is B'shav V'chmecha, but that's not telling you what matzav you have to be in. What matzav do you have to be in to connect to Hashem Echad? There is no matzav. It's just that's the mitzias of every single one of us. That's the refuah that Hill brings to us. Now the Mishnah goes on to say that even if you want to be machna, like Vishami, it's not good to be machna like Vishami. The Mishnah says, Reb Tarfon said, I was going in the way, I was traveling. And I dafka laid down, it was Krishna of the night, and I laid down to read Krishna like Vishami. Even though everyone knows that we always pass like Beis Hillel, but Beis Hillel would agree that lying down is okay as well. So he's saying that you don't have to lie down, but you could lie down as well. So he figured he's going to be machna. So v'sikanti ba'atzv listim, and I put myself in a sakana because of bandits and robbers. It was I put myself in a vulnerable position by lying down on the street. And Amr Lai, and the Chachamim said to Reb Tarfon, the blood would have been on your own head. Yeah, it wouldn't have been such a misfortune, Chas v'shalom, if you got hurt. It was your own fault. You were over on the words of Beis Hillel. So this is nice appella. You violated Beis Hillel. Again, Beis Hillel didn't say that you shouldn't lie down. Beis Hillel said you don't have to. So what's this Indian of going against Beis Hillel? So maybe according to what we just said, if you're machmer like Beis Hillel, so you think you're being machmer like Beis Hillel, but you're being mekel on other yidden, right? In other words, there are some yidden that could hold to that his chayvus of Vishami, that yichud Hashem. In other words, to connect to Hashem Echad in the world of Vishami is gavaldik if you have that hachana, but it's also limited because in the world of Vishami you're saying that Hashem Echad is only experienced either in that state of yishuv adas, either lying down or standing up. So even though it's a chumrah in terms of the physical position that you're in, and maybe in terms of your hachana and your avodah, but you're being mekel on how broad Hashem's malchus is. Beis Hillel is being machmer in terms of saying that every single situation in life you could find Hashem Echad. So says Reb Tarfon, I would want to be machmer like Vishami. Said the Chacham back, you're not being but that's a kula. That's a kula in the world of Beis Hillel, because Beis Hillel is saying that every single matzav is part of Hashem's world. By you changing your physical position to put yourself in a different position to find Hashem means that as if you're proclaiming Hashem wasn't in my first position. That's dafka going against Beis Hillel. So it's not. So Beis Hillel is not just being makel and saying do whatever you want. He's saying Adarav is an avoid in that. Every position that you find yourself in is you have the obligation to find Hashem in that matzah. And Beis Hillel's being machmer on us. He's being machmer on us in a way that opens up, Hashem Echad to every single Jew in every single situation. But it's an avodah. It's an avodah. And Beis Hillel and Rabbi Tarfon was trying to go against that. Maybe it's Bashkacha Pratis. That's why I know we're supposed to cover ground. I'm sorry, but there's you have to always pay attention to the Baal HaMemra, the one that is saying the line of Chazal. And especially the first time. This is the first time Reb Tarfon's name is mentioned in Shas. Reb Tarfon. The word Tarfon comes to the word Tarav, which means to rip up. Tarav Yosef. Right? Yaakov Avinu said Yosef Tzaddik was ripped up to shreds. That's what he thought. So the word Tarfon, the first statement of Reb Tarfon in Shas, is a call from Reb Tzaddik that everything, darkness always precedes light. Right? So what we're experiencing now, Reb Tarfon, the mistake Reb Tarfon makes Kivyochel at his level, the mistake that he makes is ripping up Yichud Hashem Kivyochel, saying that Yichud Hashem only exists in this piece of paper. You rip it up, it's only over in that corner, not in this corner. So the whole inyan of the Chiddush of Beis Hillel is Harav V'Shur that means there is no, it's not in pieces. Malchus Hashem is one big entity that encompasses all of life. Jogging and walking and laying down and standing up, and don't change your position to say Krishna. So the whole inyan of Beis Hillel is that whatever position you're in, that's part of Malchus Hashem. Rav Tarfon is of Tarif, of ripping up. That the mistake of Rav Tarfon is to rip up, Yichud Hashem, and to say that Yichud Hashem only is in this little corner. So rip that off, the entirety of the page. It's all one. It's all one Yichud. It's all one Yichud. Okay, next Mishnah. So Mishnah Mishnah Dalet. The Shachar. Now we're moving on to the next shlav of Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema, as it's defined, is part of Shachris and Ma'ariv. Again, that Derabanan level. So it says the Mishnah, B'Shachar, by Shachris, so Kriya Shema is now part of davening, and it's not on its own. It's now part of Birchas Kriya Shema. There's brachas that we say before Kriya Shema and after Kriya Shema. It's one big set. It's one big bracha really. So b'shachar mevarach shtayim lefaneha v'achas lachreha. So Shachris, there are two brachas before Kriya Shema, right? Yotzer Ma'iris and Avas Olam. Those are the first two brachas. And then you say Kriya Shema and Achas Lachreha, and one following it, and that's Gol Yisrael, right? So it's one big seder. Ube'erev, and with Ma'ariv, shtayim lefaneha, shtayim lachreha. There's two brachas before Ma'ariv Aravim and Avas Olam, and then following that also Gol Yisrael and Hashkivein. Right, that's for Ma'ariv. Achas aruka v'achas ketzara. One of those brachas are long, and one of them is short. Okay, Mishnah explains. Balkim shamru laharich. When you're supposed to say a long bracha in Rosh Hashanah, you shouldn't shorten it. L'katzer, if you're supposed to say a short bracha in Rosh Hashanah, don't make it lengthy, don't make it long. What does it mean, short or long? So it's like this. In halacha, to define something as a long bracha versus a short bracha that you can't switch it, is not how many words it has. It's whether it starts and ends with baruch, right? So let's say shahakol. The bracha of shahakol is just the baruch atah Hashem is only in the beginning of the bracha, right? That's defined as a short bracha. You want to add words to it, it doesn't change the identity of the bracha unless you start ending the bracha with baruch atah Hashem something else. Ashiyotzer is defined as a long bracha. Why? Because it starts with baruch atah Hashem. And it ends with Baruch Atah Hashem, that's defined as a long bracha. When a long bracha you can't make short, and a short bracha you can't make long. So it's not about missing words. So for example, as long as you keep the bracha long, right, even if you miss some words, you're still yaitse. For example, people, it's a good halacha to know. People in the summertime, people travel, right? So you have to say Tefillah Saderech sometimes, right? So you say Tefillah Saderech. So a lot of times people don't know Tefillah Saderech by heart. So they sort of start it, starts off okay, and then somewhere in the middle, not sure exactly what to say, and then you end off okay, right? So Rabbi Yaakov said that's fine. It's based on this halacha. You start off with Baruch Atah, with Yehi Ratzon, whatever it is that as Tefillah Saderech starts, and you end off with Baruch Atah Hashem Shemei Tefillah. If in the middle it's a little bit funny, it's okay as long as you got the basic structure down. Rabbi Yaakov said even more. He said that it's even more okay with Tefillah Saderech because it's not really called a bracha. We call it Tefillah Saderech. Brachas were much more careful about having the right nusach, but tefillah, although we have a nusach of davening, the essence of davening is personal. The essence of davening is just talking and just speaking to Hashem. So Rabbi Yaakov said we call tefillah saderech. Why don't we call it birchas saderech? It's a bracha. So that we call tefillah saderech because of this point. The nusach is not so rigid. Like if you get the basic idea and you miss some words, you add some words. That's not only are you yaitse, but like that's tefillah saderech. That's the nature of tefillah, is to do that. And so the Mishna now explains the same thing. L'katzer. It goes on. Lachtime, in other words, again, what does it mean long or short? Lachtime, if the brach is by Kriya Shema, right, by Shachris and Ma'ariv, if it's set up with a chasima, with an ending, like Baruch Atah Hashem Gol Yisrael, so in Rosh Hashanah, then you have to have that ending. If you don't have that ending, then you just changed it from a long bracha to a short bracha. Because again, you have to think of it, even though, let's say, MSV Atziv, right, doesn't start with a baruch, but it all flows back to the first bracha of Kriya Shema. So that first bracha of Kriya Shema, which starts with Baruch Atah Hashem, that sets a tone that all the following brachas are also sort of defined with the beginning of Baruch Atah Hashem, and they have an ending to it. So if it's a long bracha, you can't shorten it, and vice versa. If it's set up without an ending, and then you can't create an ending. So that's the general rule when it comes to brachas. Okay, let's do one last Mishnah, or maybe we have some time. Yeah, we got some time. Baruch Hashem, I'm getting better. getting better with the Zoom thing. So fine, let's do the next Mishnah. So we could start the next part too. It says the Mishnah, Maskir Nitzias Mitzrayim Beleilas. So let's go back again. You have the mitzvah of Krishma, Midraisa, and then you have Krishma as it's sort of incorporated into Shachris and Ma'ariv. But what is Krishma from the Torah? So it's a whole big machlokes in the Rishonim whether the mitzvah of Krishma is just that first line, maybe Shema Yisrael. In fact, there's proof to that. The Gemara says that Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, in his shir, so he used to give a shir that started before Zman Kriya Shema, very late at night, and it would go throughout, continue till after Zman Kriya Shema. So the Gemara says the Talmidim asked each other, when's Rabbi Yehuda Nasi saying Kriya Shema? So the Talmidim said that during the shir, at some point in the middle, he covers his eyes for a second. He passes his hand over his face. That's when he's saying Kriya Shema. And the Gemara explains that all he said was Shema Yisrael. That's all he said. So Rishonim bring down from there, you see a raya, that if you want to know technically, what's the mitzvah midaraisa of Kriya Shema, so you see it's probably just that line, because that's all Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said. Other Rishonim say that no, that even though that's true, and technically you're yaitzi with that, but really to fulfill the mitzvah properly, you have to give some context. You have to give some explanation to Shema Yisrael Shem Knesset Echad. So with the parsha of Yahavta and V'hayim Shemaya. But everyone agrees that the last paragraph of Shema is not Mechuyev Midaraisa, the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. That's not necessary. The Yahavta is expanding on Hashem Echad. That one God, I love him. That one God, I fulfill his mitzvahs. That's V'hayim Shemaya. The last parak of Kriya Shema is about tzitzis, which is very, very nice. And it's about Yitzias Mitzrayim, which is also very nice, but it's not a commentary to Hashem Echad. So Midaraisa, that last parak is not necessary. Chazal instituted it because of the Indian of Yitzias Mitzrayim, and we want to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim daily. That's its own Indian. So they incorporate it into Kriya Shema. But that's why we say it. So says the Mishnah over here, it was well known that there's an Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim by the day. So that third parak was well established in the Kriya Shema of the morning. But it wasn't so pashut that there's such an Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim at night. Because again, it's not part of the mitzvah of Kriya Shema. It's a separate Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim. And we know we left Mitzrayim. The main Yitzias Mitzrayim was by the daytime. Pesach morning, we left Mitzrayim. The night of Pesach, we got permission to leave. So maybe the Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim is not so important at night. So says the Mishnah, no, maskir Yitzias Mitzrayim b'leilos, you have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim at night as well. You should say by Yomer in Kriya Shema at night as well. Amar Elazar ben Azariah, famous Mishnah from Haggadah, Elazar ben Azariah said, Harani kiven shiv mishana, I'm holding like already 70 years old. And I always felt in my kishkes that there's an Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim at night, but I never really had the source to prove it. Until Ben Zayma, a colleague of his came and darshan, and to show that no, the Indian of mentioning Kriya Shema is not just by the day, but it's also at night. It says in Pasuk L'man Tizkar es Yom Tzeischa Meres Mitzrayim, that you have to remember the day that you left Mitzrayim. That's the day. That's Kriya Shema. That's remembering Mitzrayim by the daytime. Kol Yemei Chayecha, all the days of your life. So what does that mean? All the days of your life. So Yemei Chayecha means Hayamim. The days of your life means by the day. Kol Yemei Chayecha means even at night. The Chamer and the Chachamim say that besides that all the days of your life, meaning nighttime, it also includes another tekufa. Yemei Chayecha Olam Hazeh, Kol Yemei Chayecha, all the days of your life means Lavi Ma'aseh Mashiach. Even when Mashiach comes, we'll have to mention Yitzias Mitzrayim as well, even though the miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim will be overshadowed with the miracles of Mashiach. But it all begins with Yitzias Mitzrayim. So even when we have Mashiach, we always have to remember where it started from. If Cook has a piece like that in Oris Yisrael, Oris Atchia, he says that the Gula of Moshe and the Gula of Mashiach is one long Gula. Moshe begins that Gula and Mashiach ends that Gula. But it's one long process of the Rebbeinu Shloim, taking the world out of Galus, bringing the truth to reality. So even when Mashiach comes, the particular miracles of Mashiach will overshadow the particular miracles of Yitzias Mitzrayim, but it's one big Indian. It's Kol Yemei Chayecha. It's an Indian that's been happening, that's been unfolding the entire time. Maybe that's why Chazal, if you think about it, if there's an Indian of mentioning Yitzias Mitzrayim, why did Chazal put it in Kriya Shema? Like I said, Kriya Shema is its own Indian. It's Yichad Hashem. Hashem is one, And because of that, we love him. Because of that, we keep his mitzvahs. That's the first two parshas of Krishna. There's a separate Indian of mentioning Yitzis Mitzrayim. So we say parshas Vayomer, but Chazal put it all together. Why would Chazal do that? Why not keep it separate? So maybe it's this Indian of like Yitzis Mitzrayim. It shouldn't be seen as an isolated incident. It has to be seen from that lens of Hashem Echad, that one God which encompasses all of reality. That oneness of Hashem began to be known in the world through Yitzis Mitzrayim, which also has to be seen as an event which encompasses all of reality, all of history. So just like Hashem is one and it encompasses all of our lives, so Yitzis Mitzrayim is an event which is one and encompasses all of world history. Every single event in world history is just the next stage of that Gula, which begins with Yitzis Mitzrayim and ends with the Yemais Mashiach. So it's all one big Indian. And to bring that home, bring that point across, that Yitzis Mitzrayim is not just an isolated incident. It's a redefining moment that we have to then see all of history through that perspective, through that lens. So we put that in Krishna because Krishna is the same Indian. Hashem is Echad, and that Echad encompasses everything. So to Yitzis Mitzrayim in time. So Hashem is like, the concept. Hashem Echad is everything. Yitzis Mitzrayim is that Echad in time itself. And so when we talk about Gula, it already began. It's just a matter of unpackaging and being able to see it, mamash, with open eyes. Okay, no, fine. So we got to the first parak. No, I'm realizing now, by the way, that like part of this Indian is not just learning Mishna. It's like being able to see you guys, Monday afternoon. It's a nice thing. So I wish Mizrach to have a good rest of the day. Chaim, shkayach everybody.